The geopolitical doctrine proposed by France's president has surprised Europe with its bold initiatives and sobering pragmatism. Some see in Macron's proposals a time bomb, while others interpret it as a way to save the unity of European Union, which, in Macron's opinion, is being undermined by multiple crises from terrorist attacks to COVID. Today, the Security Court is going to get opinion on it from Ambassador of France to Ukraine, Mr. Etienne de Poncins, and from Sasha Orlovsky, digital expert on hate speech and disinformation. I'm Tetiana Popova. Good evening.
Europe needs sovereignty and autonomy in security matters in order not to become a vassal of another power and to be able to make its personal choice. Such is the main message of the geopolitical doctrine proposed by the President of France. Emmanuel Macron drew attention to the coincidence of many short-term crises such as pandemic and terrorism, as well as to meteoric technological and environmental changes, encouraging the world to invent new forms of international cooperation. Macron is convinced that the current paradigm of the world order does not solve the problem of climate change and growing inequality. Moreover, the French president sees dependence on American or Chinese technologies as a threat to the security of personal data and civil rights of Europeans.
Your Excellency, what is the purpose of President Macron promoting a European doctrine of sovereignty? And is it possible that it became reality?
Yes, since President Macron took office in 2017, he has insisted on the fact that Europe should take more responsibility on the world stage and that it should create European sovereignty, meaning that in a world which is more and more complex, it is important for European Union to be united, to speak with one voice, and to defend and promote its own interest on the world stage. In particular, after the Brexit.
What about NATO? It will be some sovereignty inside NATO, or how it will expect it to be?
France is a founding member of NATO. We have a strong relationship with NATO for decades. But we think that NATO could not be the only one tool for European security. And we need for Europe to be more autonomous and to build its own capacity to intervene on the world stage.
Almost 3/4 of NATO budget funded from North America. Germany and France together give approximately 10% of NATO budget. Are your country ready to increase their part?
It depends how you count. It's when it comes to NATO, the organization, an international organization, France and Germany are paying for roughly a quarter of the total cost. And France is really committed to increase its own defense efforts, and it has demonstrated its capacity to intervene in crisis very efficiently and very quickly. And we are ready to continue to increase this capacity, to build this capacity with our European colleagues, and in particular with Germany.
What about other European countries, members of European Union? Are they ready to support Macron's doctrine about more sovereignty in Europe in terms of military and defense and other sectors?
I think that following the intervention of President Macron, yes, things are changing. The mindset is changing within the European Union, and more and more partners are thinking that it's time for the European Union to have its own sovereignty. I mean, defending its borders. We see with the crisis on migration that the response can only be a collective one. To respond to the threat of migration. And we have reinforced in the past years, for example, the European Agency on Borders called Frontex. And step by step, the European Union is reinforcing its sovereignty in all sectors. I mean, security, but also trade, external trade, and space for freedom and justice and so on and so forth.
What actually do you expect from a new administration of United States? Biden just won and confirmed and was inaugurated. What do you think? How will be future relation between EU and US and France and US?
As you may know, France is the oldest ally of the United States. Those relationships will continue and will increase with the new administration for sure. And in particular, we have warmly welcomed the announcement by the US that they are going to join again the Paris Agreement on climate change. And this is very good news, not only for French-US relationship, but for the world in general.
It was some accusation of President Macron that he built quite good relations comparing to other European countries and United States with Mr. Putin. How realistic are these accusations?
We have been very clear since the beginning that we do think that it's important to engage Russia in a frank and demanding dialogue if we want to obtain results. We are facing a clear-cut choice. Russia is in Europe, and Russia is an important partner. So either we decide to ignore it, either we decide to go for engagement and to enter into that dialogue. And we do think that it's the second way is better than the first way, and it would be useless to stop discussing and engaging with Russia. And we have seen also that when Russia is isolated, the consequence could be bad, not only for Russia but for the whole European situation. And this is why President Macron has engaged this very frank and sometimes robust dialogue with President Putin. And we continue to think that was the good thing to do.
Nevertheless, they doing these things with poisoning their opponents or Mr. Skripal, Mr. Gerbev.
But having a dialogue doesn't mean that we are supporting or that we are naive, but it's better to have a channel for communication than just to stop. And this channel for communication is important also for Ukraine, because Russia is part of the Normandy format,
as well as
and we need, of course, to keep that channel open with Russia and with Moscow.
Okay, next topic of our communication. But while the president of France was cherishing new principles of international interaction, the social tension inside France increased, and we will speak about it.
The Yellow Vests movement is a protest movement in France without a clear leader that emerged at the end of 2018. Its participants can be recognized by reflective jackets that they wear while participating in many thousands of rallies. They seek to achieve implementation of a wide range of social and economic demands. The movement quickly became extensive and spread throughout the country. It is being supported by several opposition leaders, but unlike the protests organized by trade unions, this movement arose spontaneously through the support of online petitions and calls in social networks. Among the successes of the Yellow Vests are the concessions made by the authorities as regards to the pension reform.
Expert of Innovative Digital has been engaged in exposing possible patrons of Yellow Vests, campaigning and investigating the hidden background behind these protests. We are now talking to Alex Orlovsky. Good evening, Alex.
Good evening. Hello to everybody.
Alex, do you believe in spontaneously emergence of such a massive protest movement? And what do you think in is the main evidence of this. How has this attitude of French towards the protesters changed during the Yellow Jackets actions?
Basically, what it was very clear to everybody, it was that during, especially the protest during December, basically was that most of the campaign on Twitter, that was the real-time connection of the protest, it was pumped up and by followers of Russia Today and Sputnik France. Of course, there was many people involved. What we've seen actually is that France became the internet propaganda battlefield in those days. There were some cases where the protester was like 5,000 people, but we had like 150,000 users tweeting like if there was in the middle of the protest, and if you was looking at the Yellow Jackets protest from outside of France without being there, the situation looks like a civil war. And it was like the evil was the President Macron, and the good people, it was the people in the street. But the thing is that the number of the real violent protester, it was very small compared on what it was the protest online. But the protest online was very focused on like several clusters. One of the huge cluster was, of course, the followers of Russia Today France and Sputnik France. And of course, there was like a huge intention of the disruptive polarization of the Russian propaganda in France, especially against the secularism. And then there was very pushing towards like extremist Catholic. There was like an account called Stop Homo, Stop Against Homosexual, that he was retweeting thousands and thousands of tweets against Macron with a very strong hate speech, actually. And of course, the account has been banned. It's been like closed down by Twitter. But all these accounts retweeting a lot against the President Macron, they always had the same pattern, that was extremism, religious, against Muslim, against the secularism, and pretty close to Russia, of course. We basically researched more than 1 million tweets in December, during the December riot of the Yellow Vest. And basically, the point of attack was, of course, the President Macron, and the part of news and misinformation was made by Sputnik and Russia Today. The biggest alt-droite, French alt-droite, they're basically like a part of Le Pen, Front National, all these kind of people, the pro-Russian, that was using this news against them. But there was as well one part coming out from the gauche, from the left socialist people. And this is the main analysis of the community during the propaganda. And this was the follower, who they was following, who was very organized, was the Steve Bannon movement, an American, and plus the nationalist and the pro-Russian, I would say. And here, clearly, we see the brands they love, okay? The brands they love was number one, was RT France, Russia Today France, Sputnik France, TV Liberté.
We saw that already, yeah.
Yeah, okay, let's go down then. This was another example of account that has been taken down by Twitter after a few days. And we found this account because the name was Stop Mariage Homo, let's stop the gay marriage. But it is Jean-Frédéric Poncins. And how you see is anti-immigration, anti-abort, anti-gay marriage, conservator, is a very extremist. And here we analyze that it was tweeting just using automated software. Then it was everything based on bots. He had 24,000 followers, and the software he was using, it wasn't an iPhone or Android or whatever. It was used a software called Retweet and ReTSMH, okay? And that this was a case of automated propaganda.
Maybe just one word. Yes, there are extremism everywhere in all countries. You have in the US, you have in the UK, in Italy, in France, of course, obviously. But I do not see exactly what is the point of that demonstration, except that confirming that there are extremism everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, but I do agree with the Ambassador, of course. But the big problem is that all these extremism, they get amplified and they get organized, how we see like with the Capitol Hill attack through social medias. And we have like foreign countries that are interfering in the normal political talking in the countries, amplifying and helping to amplify this phenomenon. Then the people think, for example, at a certain point, there is much more people against the President Macron or against a new law or against a new politician. Russia has been the first one adopting what is called the Gerasimov Doctrine, the General Gerasimov. It's a sort of like urban legend, but it's been the first one that he said we need to pump or use the internet and the cyber threat. That the first things that General Gerasimov done is been to set up a team of amazing hackers that was hacking infrastructures, power plant, stealing data, and of course, with the old IRA based in St. Petersburg, there was like an entire building of people just working in retweeting, entering the social media, and opening fake blogs with fake news. And for example, amplifying the problem of the immigration. That's one of the things. And amplifying the problem of the euro and the Europe and Brussels is trying to push everybody towards the exit from the European community. And when you have like basically millions and millions, or I would say 20-30% of the tweets or the posts on Facebook talking about politics that are handled by a foreign country that is not a part of the European community, I think that is a problem.
His Excellency is agreed that we should find some solution how to deal with that problem. Thank you, Mr. de Poncins. Thank you, Sasha. Thanks for your comprehensive and exclusive opinions, and I wish you all the best. It was the Security Code and its host Tetiana Popova. Watch us every Thursday on UATV at 7 p.m. or on YouTube at 9:05. Subscribe to our channels and pages in social media. See you next week.